I've often said if you're selling to procurement, you need to think like procurement. You need to get inside their heads. So that's what we're talking about in this episode. Sit tight, I'll be right back. Welcome back, heroes, to the KAM Club podcast dedicated to helping busy key account managers get one step ahead. I'm your host, Warwick Brown, and I am excited that you're here. Now, look, the truth of the matter is that at some point in every sales conversation, procurement will be involved. So if procurement is going to be involved, whether it's owning the entire sales process or just the end sourcing piece, whatever it may be, if you're going to sell to procurement, you need to start to think like them. And over the years, it has proven to be an invaluable mindset. Now, it's become increasingly difficult to put into practice. Now, way back in my day, procurement used to manage everything. They managed the category, they managed the sourcing. They were my primary point of contact when I was a key account manager. They negotiated the deals, they implemented them, as well as managed them ongoing. In the past maybe 10 years or so, procurement has shifted quite dramatically from managing the categories to more sourcing the categories. They negotiate the deals and then they hand them back to a business partner. Now, I used to work in business travel, but my stakeholder was marketing sometimes. It was HR sometimes. It was the security technology people sometimes. It depended on who got the hot potato of this category within the business as to who I would be dealing with, which has made it increasingly difficult to build relationships with procurement because you don't see them day to day. They're wheeled in and out when it comes to sourcing and negotiating a contract, and then they move on to the next one, the next deal. Now, in my mission to learn more about procurement, I stumbled across some great resources, and one of them is the Art of Procurement podcast. I absolutely love it. Been listening to it for years. They're fantastic at bringing to light some important trends, as well as just lifting the bonnet under how procurement works. They've launched some spin-off shows, including Procurement for the People, which is the episode I'm going to get into because I was blown away. It's called How to Sell to Procurement, a Masterclass with Jill Dunlop. Links are in the show notes at amtip.co/003. And masterclass it was. It was jam-packed with insights, and I made some notes that I want to share with you. Procurement is lean and stretched. They work across multiple categories across the value chain. They work with thousands of suppliers. To get their attention, you need to stand out and have differentiating value propositions. Now, look, I know procurement's lean. In fact, give me a department that isn't lean. But this idea that they work across multiple categories across the value chain from end to end, that there's thousands of suppliers in the mix, just reminded me that of the scope of their job, how big their job is. And it's something that I don't often think about, and it was good to be reminded about that, and that actually, if I want their attention, I've got to lift my game. They said emails and cold calls don't work. As you can imagine, if they're working with thousands of suppliers, they're busy. They're managing billions in spend. The advice was don't interrupt them with standard pitches. Procurement are the best negotiators. They often train their sales teams on how to negotiate deals. They're going to see right through it, right? So they've seen it all before. Be different. Take a different approach. Those scripts, throw them out. It's not about price. I thought this was interesting. Quality, speed, and value is more important. Nice to know. Understand what their business is facing, what their goals are, what their investors are expecting. Understand the strategic sourcing process, and I've got something for you on that in a minute. What's the evaluation criteria? What's the timeline? I'm a big proponent of understanding your customer, researching your customer, going beyond just the corporate website, the about page, but really trying to get into the space that they operate in, the market, the industry, the competitors, the customers. Not too deep, but enough that you have the ability to ask intelligent questions and that you can draw conclusions and you can connect some dots for your clients between what they're looking to achieve and what you have to offer. Let the data tell the story. So share marketplace best practices and learn from each other. Be collaborative. The value chain comes first. I thought this was interesting too. And they describe the value chain as everything and everyone that keeps a business running and makes it successful and profitable, or puts it at risk. Procurement is invested in making it work in a healthy, proactive way. Love that. And again, sometimes we see procurement as enemies or frenemies and thinking about their motives and that actually they just want things to work well. And if they can get everybody that's connected in the value chain to work together harmoniously, job done. This again is interesting. You've probably come across this, but they said the value chain is interconnected but fragmented. There shouldn't be silos in a business, but there is a problem with visibility and alignment. Teams are compensated on siloed performance, not cross-functional collaboration. I see this in my job. I'm sure you see it in yours. You're gold on one thing, but your colleagues are gold on something else. And sometimes there's friction or there's no motivation for them to help you because they're not going to get paid extra for it. That's not what's going to keep them their job. That's not what their manager's looking for them to do. So there's this constant battle between departments on how to work together and what you're working towards. Procurement is a discipline. It should be centralized, not embedded across business units. That way, procurement can develop standard processes, consolidate and share data, be more profitable, and bring more visibility to the voice of the customer. So this is that idea that I was talking about at the top of the episode where procurement used to be centralized and they used to manage the categories more centrally and there used to be more line of sight across the business to all the verticals. It's been decentralized, and now this idea is that we should start to bring it back together. Maybe not in the completely centralized way that it was, but start to coordinate across the business units and share information and consolidate data and bring that visibility. And I think that's something we can certainly help with in our roles in key account management for sure. Procurement need to be more transparent. This is a new trend, something that's ongoing about being more strategic and having a strategic voice at the planning stages with their business partners, not just being dragged back in at the end to negotiate the deals. So the idea in this is to have conversations with the business, provide information to add context to the profit and loss numbers, share supplier performance with a basic scorecard, like maybe red, amber, green, that type of thing, a RAG status, top 10 suppliers, percentage of spend with those suppliers, how they're performing against KPIs, understanding leakage with those categories and suppliers, payment terms, availability of supply and alternative supplies, innovations. These are actually things we can also showcase. We can showcase our innovations. We can showcase how we're performing against KPIs. We can have conversations about leakage with our customers to find out how we can help eliminate that. So there's things that we can do to help with those challenges and also help them communicate that within the business. Now, in this podcast, they also mentioned the 7-step sourcing process. Now, my ears pricked up because I had never heard that before. And I have been digging around a lot on procurement over the years. So I dug around a bit more and discovered it's one of the most popular sourcing frameworks. It was designed by A.T. Kearney and it's considered best practice. So I also made notes on that. Now, this isn't in the podcast, How to Sell to Procurement. So let me just run through that real quick, what that looks like. Because I think it's important that we understand the stages of a purchasing decision. Now, the famous 7-step strategic sourcing process was developed by A.T. Kearney. Here they are. Number 1, profile the category, volumes, current prices, suppliers, specifications, and users. Step 2, supply market analysis. So understand supply risk and market complexity compared to business impact. Number 3 is to develop a strategic sourcing strategy. So where and how will you buy? How will you minimize risk and cost? Establish goals and requirements, and then create that cross-functional team to review. Because procurement aren't the experts necessarily of the things that they're sourcing, so they'll invite others in to share their opinions. Step 4, start sourcing. Develop that RFP, outline specifications, requirements, pricing breakdown, legal and financial terms and conditions and evaluation criteria, and then start sourcing those bids from current and new suppliers. Negotiate and select. Analyze the RFP responses, seek clarification, and then shortlist suppliers. Number 6 is to implement and integrate. So make a decision, prepare a transition plan if it's a new supplier, and then start to include that supplier into implementation discussions. And then finally is benchmarking. So make sure that you're measuring the supplier's performance and establish the current status, future goals, and then monitor the results over the period of the contract. Simple process, 7 steps. Details are in the show notes, amtip.co/003. But keep this in mind when you're talking about renewals, when you're talking about upsell, cross-sell, expansion opportunities. A lot of the decisions will follow this process. So how can you influence those stages, or how can you adapt your approach to incorporate those stages from the get-go so that you tick those boxes and can make that decision easy for your customers? Now, as a valued listener of the KAM Club podcast, I've got a bonus for you. I did a workshop in 2020, which was titled Procurement is Changing, Are You? And I shared the highlights of the Deloitte CPO survey, and it's a revealing and surprising look at the state of procurement. It talks about the 4 pillars of procurement complexity. So there's external complexity, internal complexity, talent challenges, and technology. So I run through what that looks like, as well as what it means for you as a key account manager, how you can leverage those insights to have conversations with your customers. So check that one out. It's about 43 minutes, worth your time if you have it. So listen, I have to tell you, there's just some fun stuff to wrap up the podcast. I saw Lost City last week. Sandra Bullock, Brad Pitt, Channing Tatum. I had so much fun. I can't even remember when I enjoyed a movie as much as this. It was wild, adventure, romantic comedy, a lot like Romancing the Stone, if any of you are old enough to remember that. But I had an absolute blast. So if you want a fun night out with lots of laughs, I can highly recommend The Lost City. Check it out. So that's what I'm watching. Let me tell you what I'm reading. I am halfway through Surrounded by Idiots by Thomas Erickson. Now, he promises to help you understand yourself better, hone communication and social skills, handle conflict with confidence, improve dynamics with your boss and team, and get the best out of the people you deal with and manage. Quite the promise. Now, the first half of the book, which I've read, defines 4 personality types. Most of us are a combination of at least 2. And I have got a list of all of the traits in the show notes, so check that out. The second half, which I'm about to dive into, is all about how to adapt your behavior in order to get along and work better together. So I'll let you know how that goes when I finish it. This episode has been brought to you by the KAM Club, the world's most amazing community of key account managers. Inside, you're going to find tools, templates, guides, tutorials, coaching, training, and a connected community of account managers, all there with one purpose in mind: to help you get results. Find out more at thecamclub.com. That's a wrap, heroes, on this episode, How to Sell to Procurement. Check out the show notes at amtip.co/003, and I'll see you in the next episode real soon. Bye for now.